When a single father hides a heartbreaking secret, and a woman decides to change everything. Lucas Hale stood outside the treatment room, hands trembling, watching through the glass as his little daughter screamed while nurses strapped her legs into the walking frame. Lily was only 6 years old. 3 months ago, a car accident had stolen her ability to walk. Now, every single afternoon, he had to watch his daughter endure this kind of pain, and he couldn't do anything except be there. Nobody knew. Not a single coworker, not a single acquaintance, just him and Lily in this silent battle. But someone had started to notice. Elena Cross had been following him for 3 days, and tonight she would discover the truth. Follow my story to the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now, let me tell you about the man who refused everything and the woman determined to break down the wall he built. Lucas Hale had a face people forgot. 32, average height, dark hair that needed a trim, a jawline neither sharp nor soft. He worked in the logistics department of a mid-sized distribution company in the outskirts of Denver, the kind of job where no one remembers your name unless you screw up. He showed up at 7:45 every morning, logged invoices, coordinated shipments, answered emails in clipped sentences, and left at exactly 4:30. Not 4:32, not 4:28, 4:30. Every single day. Elena Cross noticed because she noticed everything. She was 28, sharp-eyed, ambitious in the way that made older men uncomfortable and younger ones intimidated. She'd been hired 6 months ago as a junior operations analyst, a role she intended to outgrow within a year. She had plans, corporate plans, life plans, plans that involved corner offices and her name on doors. Lucas Hale was not part of those plans, but his behavior bothered her the way a loose thread bothers someone who can't stop pulling at it. It started with the overtime. "Lucas, we need someone to stay late Thursday," their manager, Phil, had said one afternoon, leaning against the doorframe of the shared office space. Phil was 50-something, with a gut that strained his polo shirts and a habit of ending sentences with, "Yeah?" like he needed constant validation. "Got a shipment delay. Just an hour, maybe 2. You in?" Lucas didn't look up from his monitor. "Can't. Can't or won't? Can't." Phil's face went tight. "This is the 3rd time this month, Hale." "I know." "You got something more important than your job?" Lucas's fingers paused on the keyboard. For a moment, Elena thought he might actually answer, but he just said, "I'll make up the hours tomorrow morning," and went back to typing. Phil left, muttering something about team players, and Lucas acted like the conversation had never happened. Elena, sitting 2 desks over, had watched the whole thing. She'd seen this pattern before. Lucas never stayed late, never took on extra projects, never joined the others for drinks on Fridays. He wasn't rude, exactly. He just wasn't there. Even when he was physically present, he seemed to be calculating the seconds until he could leave. Most people wrote him off as lazy or antisocial. Elena didn't buy it. Lazy people didn't show up early every day. Antisocial people didn't have the kind of tired eyes Lucas had, the kind that came from caring too much about something, not too little. So she started paying attention. She noticed he never ate lunch in the break room. He took his 20-minute break in his car, windows up, eating something out of a plastic container he brought from home. She noticed he never checked his phone during work hours, but the second the clock hit 4:30, he was out the door, phone already pressed to his ear. She noticed the way his shoulders stayed tight all day, like he was holding something heavy no one else could see. And she noticed that every single evening he drove in the same direction, east toward the older part of town, where the buildings got shorter and the streetlights flickered. It was curiosity at first. Then it became a problem she needed to solve. On a Wednesday in late September, Elena made a decision she wasn't entirely proud of. She left work at 4:15, got in her car, and waited. At 4:30 exactly, Lucas emerged from the building, moving fast. He didn't look around, didn't pause to chat with anyone. Just headed straight to his car, a beat-up Honda Civic with a dented rear bumper and a child's car seat in the back. Elena's stomach tightened. A kid. Of course. That explained the rigid schedule, the refusal to stay late. But it didn't explain the look in his eyes, the kind of exhaustion that went deeper than just single parenthood. She followed him. She kept 2 cars between them, feeling ridiculous and invasive and determined all at once. Lucas drove east, just like she'd guessed, through neighborhoods that got progressively rougher, until he pulled into the parking lot of a low-slung building with a faded sign, Maplewood Rehabilitation Center. Elena parked across the street, engine idling, and watched as Lucas got out of his car and walked inside, shoulders hunched like he was bracing against a wind only he could feel. A rehab center. For what? Physical therapy? Addiction treatment? She sat there for 10 minutes, arguing with herself. This was none of her business. This was invasive. This was wrong. But she got out of the car anyway. The reception area smelled like disinfectant and old carpet. A tired-looking woman in scrubs sat behind a desk, barely glancing up as Elena walked in. Visiting someone? Yes. I'm meeting a friend. Lucas Hale. The woman checked a clipboard. Sign in. He's in PT3, down the hall, second door on the left. Elena's hand shook slightly as she signed a fake name. She walked down the hallway, heart pounding, and stopped just outside the door marked PT3. Through the narrow window, she saw him. Lucas was kneeling on a padded mat, his hand steadying a little girl, maybe 6 years old, dark curly hair, wearing pink leggings and an oversized sweatshirt. The girl's legs were strapped into metal braces, and she was gripping parallel bars with white-knuckled fists, her face scrunched in concentration and pain. "You're doing great, Lily," Lucas said, his voice soft in a way Elena had never heard before. "Just a few more steps, okay? Just to the end." "It hurts, Daddy." The girl's voice cracked. "I know, baby. I know it does." A physical therapist stood nearby, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense posture. "She's been at it for 40 minutes, Lucas. Maybe we should—" "She can do it," Lucas said, and there was something fierce in his tone. "Lily, look at me." The girl looked up, tears streaking her cheeks. "You're the strongest person I know," Lucas said. "Stronger than me. Stronger than anyone. And I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." Lily took a shaky breath, then moved her right leg forward, dragging the brace with visible effort, then the left, then the right again. "That's it. That's my girl." The therapist smiled, but it was a professional smile, the kind that didn't quite reach the eyes. Elena had seen enough medical procedures in her own family to recognize the look. The one that said, "Progress is good, but don't hope for miracles." Lily made it to the end of the bars and immediately collapsed against Lucas, sobbing. He caught her, holding her tight, whispering things Elena couldn't hear. Elena backed away from the door, her throat tight. She'd been expecting a secret, an affair, maybe. Gambling debts, something scandalous or selfish. Not this. Not a father spending every spare second fighting for his daughter's recovery, alone and unnoticed. She left the building before anyone saw her. What? The next day at work, Elena couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time she glanced at Lucas, she saw him differently. The tightness in his shoulders made sense now. The refusal to stay late. The way he moved through the office like he was conserving energy for something that actually mattered. At lunch, she found herself in the break room with two coworkers, Jessica from HR and Mark from shipping. "You ever notice how Hale just disappears every day?" Mark said, biting into a sandwich. "Like, the second it's quitting time, he's gone." Jessica shrugged. "Maybe he's got a side gig." "Or a girlfriend," Mark said, grinning. "Dark horse type, you know?" Elena kept her mouth shut, but something hot flared in her chest. These people had worked with Lucas for years and didn't know a damn thing about him. Didn't care to know. "He's probably just boring," Jessica said, scrolling through her phone. "Some people have no life." Elena stood up, her chair scraping louder than she intended. "Maybe he's got more important things going on than happy hour." Both of them looked at her, surprised. "What, you know something we don't?" Mark asked. "No," Elena said quickly. "Just saying, not everyone needs to broadcast their whole life." She left before they could ask more questions. That evening, Elena found herself back at Maplewood. She didn't go inside this time, just sat in her car across the street, watching the entrance. Lucas arrived at 5:05, the same as yesterday. He stayed for 2 hours. When he finally came out, he was carrying Lily in his arms. The little girl was asleep, her head resting on his shoulder, her legs dangling limp in those metal braces. Lucas's face looked hollowed out, like someone had taken an eraser to all the sharp parts of him and left only exhaustion. Elena watched him buckle Lily into the car seat with careful, practiced movements. He stood there for a moment afterward, one hand on the roof of the car, head bowed, like he was gathering the strength to drive home. She should leave. She should stop this weird, invasive surveillance and let the man have his privacy. But instead, she got out of her car and walked across the street. Lucas didn't notice her until she was 5 feet away. When he looked up, his expression went from tired to guarded in an instant. "Can I help you?" he said, his voice flat. "I'm Elena," she said. "We work together. She faltered, realizing how insane this sounded. "I saw you here yesterday." His jaw tightened. "You followed me." Yes, I'm sorry. That was wrong." "Yeah, it was." He turned away, reaching for the car door. "I wanted to help," Elena said quickly. Lucas froze. Then he turned back, and the look on his face was something close to anger. "Help with what exactly?" "With whatever you're dealing with, your daughter, the therapy." "I don't know, I just thought You thought what?" His voice was low, controlled, but there was an edge to it. "That I need saving? That you'd swoop in and fix my life because you decided I look sad?" Elena flinched. "No, You don't know me," Lucas said. "You don't know anything about my life. And showing up here, following me around like I'm some kind of project, that's not help. That's you making yourself feel better. That's not fair." "Fair?" Lucas let out a short, bitter laugh. "You want to talk about fair? My daughter got hit by a drunk driver 3 months ago. She had 2 surgeries and might never walk normally again. I spend every cent I have on therapy that insurance barely covers. And I work a dead-end job because it's the only one with hours that let me be there for her. So no, I don't really give a damn about fair right now." Elena's throat felt tight. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Just leave us alone," Lucas said, and this time his voice cracked, just slightly. "Please." He got in the car and drove away, leaving Elena standing in the parking lot, feeling like the worst kind of fool. She didn't follow him again, but she couldn't stop thinking about him either. About Lily's small hands gripping those bars. About the way Lucas had looked at his daughter, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. At work, Lucas avoided her. Not obviously, he was too professional for that. But he stopped making eye contact, stopped responding to her emails with anything more than the bare minimum. The invisible wall he'd built around himself got thicker, higher. Elena told herself to let it go. She had her own life, her own career to focus on. Lucas had made it clear he didn't want her involvement. But 2 weeks later, everything changed. It was a Friday afternoon, and Elena was in the middle of a budget review when her phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. "Did you hear about Hale?" Elena's stomach dropped. "What about him? He's in Phil's office. Looks bad." Elena abandoned her spreadsheet and walked casually past Phil's office. The door was closed, but through the frosted glass she could see 2 figures, one standing, one sitting. Raised voices, muffled but angry. Then the door opened and Lucas walked out. His face was pale, his jaw set. He didn't look at anyone as he headed straight for his desk, grabbed his coat, and left. Elena waited 30 seconds, then knocked on Phil's door. "Yeah?" Phil looked irritated. "Is everything okay?" "Just employee stuff. Why?" "I saw Lucas leave. He looked upset." Phil sighed, leaning back in his chair. "Between you and me, I had to let him go." Elena's heart stopped. "What?" "He's been refusing overtime for months. We've got a big contract coming up, and I need people who can be flexible. He can't, so..." Phil shrugged. "Had to make a call." "You fired him because he wouldn't stay late?" "I fired him because he's not a team player," Phil said, defensive now. "Look, I get that he's got personal stuff going on, but this is a business. I can't make exceptions." Elena stared at him, something cold settling in her chest. "When does his termination take effect?" "End of the month, 2 weeks." She left without another word. That night, Elena sat in her apartment, staring at her laptop screen. She'd pulled up the Maplewood Rehabilitation Center's website, scrolling through their services and payment options. Physical therapy for spinal injuries, $8,000 per month, minimum. Insurance covered maybe 30% if you were lucky. Lucas had been doing this for 3 months. $24,000, probably more. and now he was losing his job. She thought about Lily's face, scrunched up in pain and determination. She thought about Lucas's voice. "She's the strongest person I know." Elena opened a new browser tab and started researching. The next Monday, Lucas came to work like nothing had happened. He clocked in at 7:45, sat at his desk, and worked through his tasks with the same quiet efficiency as always. But Elena saw the difference. The tightness in his shoulders was worse. He moved like someone bracing for a hit that hadn't landed yet. At lunch, she found him in his car. She knocked on the window. He looked up, saw her, and for a second she thought he might just drive away. But he rolled down the window halfway. "I told you to leave me alone." "I know," Elena said. "And I'm sorry for showing up at the rehab center. That was invasive and wrong, and I should have respected your privacy." Lucas's expression didn't change. "Okay. Is that all?" "No." Elena took a breath. "I heard about your job." His jaw tightened. "Of course you did." "It's not right. Phil's an idiot for letting you go." "Thanks for the solidarity," Lucas said, his tone dry. "But I don't need a pep talk." "I'm not giving you one." Elena pulled out her phone and held it up so he could see the screen. "I've been looking into alternative therapy programs. There's a clinical trial at University Hospital. They're testing a new treatment for spinal nerve regeneration. It's experimental, but the results are promising, and it's fully funded. No cost to participants." Lucas stared at the screen, then at her. "Why are you doing this?" "Because I can't stop thinking about your daughter," Elena said honestly. "And because you shouldn't have to do this alone." "I'm not your charity case." "I know that." "Then what do you want from me?" Elena hesitated. That was the question, wasn't it? What did she want? To feel useful? To fix something broken? To prove she wasn't just another corporate climber who only cared about herself? "I don't want anything," she said finally. I saw what you're going through, and I thought maybe I could help. That's it." Lucas looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said, "I appreciate the research, but Lily's doctors already know about that trial. She doesn't qualify. Her injury isn't the right type." "Oh." Elena felt stupid. "I didn't realize." "Yeah." Lucas rolled up the window halfway, a clear dismissal. "Thanks anyway." He drove off, leaving Elena standing in the parking lot for the second time, feeling useless. But she didn't stop. Over the next week, she kept digging. She called rehab centers, researched grants, talked to a friend whose sister worked in pediatric medicine. She found 3 potential funding sources, 2 alternative therapy programs, and 1 surgeon in Boston who specialized in cases like Lily's. She compiled everything into a document and left it on Lucas's desk one morning before he arrived. When he saw it, he picked it up, read the first page, and then walked straight to Elena's desk. "I told you I don't need your help," he said quietly. "I know. So why do you keep pushing?" Elena looked up at him. "Because someone should." Lucas's expression cracked, just for a second. Then he set the document down on her desk and walked away. She thought that was the end of it. But the next day she found a post-it note on her keyboard. "Thank you, but I can handle this myself." It wasn't much, but it was something. The following week, Elena noticed Lucas's routine change. He started leaving work even earlier, 3:30, then 3, then 2:30. He was burning through whatever remaining goodwill he had with Phil, probably accelerating his own firing, but he didn't seem to care. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, Elena got a call from an unknown number. "Elena Cross." "Yes?" "This is Dr. Patel from Maplewood Rehabilitation. Lucas Hale listed you as an emergency contact. We need you to come to the center immediately." Elena's heart stopped. "What happened?" "It's his daughter. There's been a complication." Elena broke every speed limit getting to Maplewood. She ran through the lobby, barely stopping to sign in, and found Dr. Patel, a tall woman with graying hair and a calm, steady presence, waiting outside PT3. "Where's Lucas?" Elena asked, breathless. "Inside with Lily. I called you because he's—" Dr. Patel hesitated. "He's not in a state to make decisions right now, and we need consent for an emergency procedure." "What kind of procedure?" "Lily's been experiencing increased nerve inflammation. If we don't intervene now, she could lose the progress she's made. There's a treatment option, a specialized injection therapy, but it's expensive, and it's not covered by his insurance. How expensive? $12,000. Elena felt the air leave her lungs. And if he doesn't do it, she'll likely plateau where she is now, maybe regress. Elena looked through the window. Lucas was sitting on the floor holding Lily, who was crying into his chest. His face was buried in her hair, and his shoulders were shaking. He looked like a man who'd finally run out of fight. "I'll pay for it," Elena said. Dr. Patel blinked. "I'm sorry?" "The treatment. I'll cover it." "Miss Cross, that's a significant amount of money." "I know. I'll handle it. Just don't tell Lucas yet. Do the procedure and I'll figure out the payment." Dr. Patel studied her for a long moment. "You're sure?" "Yes." "All right, I'll prep the team." Elena stood outside the room, watching Lucas hold his daughter, and wondered what the hell she'd just done. The procedure took 3 hours. Elena spent most of it in the waiting room, her leg bouncing uncontrollably, checking her phone every 30 seconds, even though she had no one to call. She'd transferred the money from her savings account, money she'd been setting aside for a down payment on a condo, money that represented 2 years of careful budgeting and saying no to things she wanted. $12,000 gone in a single authorization form. She told herself it was the right thing to do. She also told herself she was an idiot. Around 7:30, Dr. Patel emerged, still in her scrubs, looking tired but satisfied. "It went well," she said. "Lily's in recovery. The inflammation has already started to decrease. We'll know more in the next 48 hours, but I'm optimistic." Elena let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "And Lucas?" "Still with her. He hasn't left her side." Dr. Patel paused. "He doesn't know about the payment arrangement yet. When would you like me to tell him?" "Don't," Elena said quickly. "Not yet. Just let him think insurance covered it, or the hospital has a grant program or something, anything." Dr. Patel's expression turned skeptical. "Miss Cross, he's going to find out eventually." "I know, but not today. He's been through enough." The doctor didn't look convinced, but she nodded. "All right, but I'm not comfortable lying to a patient's guardian indefinitely." "You're not lying. You're just delaying information." "That's a very fine line." "I know," Elena said, "but it's the line I'm asking you to walk." Dr. Patel studied her for a moment, then sighed. 48 hours. After that, you need to tell him yourself. Deal. Elena stayed for another hour, sitting in the hard plastic chair, scrolling through her phone without really seeing anything. She thought about leaving, but something kept her there. Some irrational need to make sure Lily was okay, even though she had no right to that information, no role in this family's life beyond unwanted intrusion. Around 9, Lucas finally emerged from the recovery area. He looked gutted, pale, red-eyed, moving like someone who'd been awake for days. When he saw Elena, he stopped. "What are you doing here?" "Dr. Patel called me. I was listed as your emergency contact." Lucas's brow furrowed. "I didn't list you as anything." "Oh." Elena felt her face flush. "Then I don't know why she called. Maybe there was a mix-up." It was a terrible lie, and Lucas clearly didn't believe it, but he was too exhausted to argue. "Lily's okay," he said, more to himself than to Elena. "They said the treatment worked. She's going to be okay." "That's good. That's really good." Lucas nodded, swaying slightly. Elena stood up, instinctively reaching out to steady him, but he stepped back. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." "Yeah, well," he rubbed his face. "It's been a long day." "When's the last time you ate?" "I don't know. This morning, maybe?" Elena pulled out her phone. "There's a diner 2 blocks from here. Let me buy you dinner." "I can't leave Lily." "Dr. Patel said she's sleeping. They've got her monitored. You can eat something and be back in 30 minutes. Lucas hesitated, and Elena could see the war happening behind his eyes, the desperate need to stay close to his daughter versus the equally desperate need to not collapse from exhaustion. 20 minutes, he said finally, and I'm paying for my own food. The diner was one of those 24-hour places with cracked vinyl booths and waitresses who looked like they'd seen every possible variation of human misery. Lucas ordered coffee and a burger. Elena got the same, even though she wasn't hungry. For the first few minutes, they didn't talk. Lucas just sat there, staring at his coffee like it held answers he couldn't find anywhere else. I'm sorry, Elena said finally. For what? For pushing. For getting involved when you didn't want me to. For all of it. Lucas took a sip of his coffee, wincing at the temperature. You called Dr. Patel, didn't you? That's why she had your number. Elena considered lying again, then decided against it. Yes. Why? Because I was worried, and because I figured if something went wrong, you'd need someone. I don't need someone. Everyone needs someone. Lucas let out a short, humorless laugh. You don't know me well enough to make that call. Maybe not. But I know what it looks like when someone's drowning, and I know what it feels like to watch it happen and do nothing. Lucas looked at her then, really looked at her, and something in his expression shifted. Who were you watching? Elena hadn't meant to go there, but the words came out anyway. My brother. He had a drug problem for years. I kept telling myself it wasn't my business, that he was an adult, that I couldn't save him if he didn't want to be saved. And then one day I got a call that he'd overdosed in a motel room in Reno. He survived, barely. But I spent 6 months afterward wondering if I could have done something different. Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Did he get clean? Eventually. He's 3 years sober now, lives in Portland, works at a bike shop, has a dog named Stanley. We talk every Sunday. That's good. Yeah, but it doesn't erase the time I spent doing nothing. The waitress brought their food. Lucas picked up his burger, then set it down without taking a bite. The treatment Lily got today, he said slowly. Dr. Patel said it was expensive, like really expensive. But when I asked about payment, she got weird, said the hospital had covered it through some kind of discretionary fund. Elena kept her expression neutral. That's great. Yeah, except Maplewood doesn't have discretionary funds. I've been coming here for 3 months. I know how their billing works. Elena's stomach tightened. Maybe it's a new program. Or maybe someone paid for it and told them to lie to me. Lucas, was it you? Elena met his eyes. Lying felt wrong, but telling the truth felt worse. Does it matter? Of course it matters. Why? Lily got the treatment she needed. She's going to recover. Isn't that what's important? Lucas's jaw worked. You had no right. I know. That's, what, $10,000? 12? You can't just throw that kind of money at a stranger's life and expect them to be grateful. I don't expect anything. Then why did you do it? Elena set down her coffee cup, her hands shaking slightly. Because I could. Because Lily deserves a chance. Because you've been carrying this alone for months and you shouldn't have to. That's not how the world works, Lucas said, his voice tight. You don't get to swoop in and play savior just because you feel guilty about your brother. The words hit harder than Elena expected. She looked down at her plate, blinking back the sudden sting in her eyes. You're right, she said quietly. I'm sorry. I overstepped. Again. Lucas ran a hand through his hair, looking miserable. No, that was a shitty thing to say. I'm sorry. You don't need to apologize. Yeah, I do. He took a breath. Look, I appreciate what you did. I do, but I can't accept it. I'll pay you back. You don't have to. Yes, I do. I don't know how long it'll take, but I'll pay back every cent. Elena wanted to argue, but she could see the stubbornness in his face, the desperate need to maintain some kind of control in a situation that had spun wildly out of his grasp. Okay, she said, if that's what you need. Lucas nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. He finally took a bite of his burger, chewing mechanically. They ate in silence for a few minutes. Then Lucas said, Dr. Patel told me you've been researching therapy programs, calling specialists. Yeah, I probably should have asked before doing that. Probably. He took another bite. But I looked at the information you left on my desk. The surgeon in Boston, Dr. Rahman. I actually called him. Elena looked up, surprised. You did? He said he'd need to see Lily's scans before making any recommendations, but he thinks she might be a candidate for a new procedure he's developing. It's not FDA approved yet, but the early results are promising. That's amazing. It's also probably another 50 grand I don't have. Lucas's voice was flat, defeated. But yeah, amazing. Elena wanted to say she'd pay for that too, but she knew better now. Instead, she said, "What about fundraising? A GoFundMe or something?" Lucas shook his head. "I'm not putting my daughter's medical crisis on the internet for strangers to gawk at." "It's not gawking. People want to help. People want to feel good about themselves. There's a difference." "That's pretty cynical." "Yeah, well," Lucas finished his burger and pushed the plate away. 3 months of this will do that to you." Elena understood that. She'd seen it with her brother, the way prolonged crisis eroded everything soft in a person until all that was left was the hard, bitter core. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Lucas looked wary. "Depends on the question." "Lily's mom, is she—" Elena hesitated, not sure how to phrase it delicately. "Dead? No. Gone? Yes." Lucas's expression closed off. "She left when Lily was 2. Decided motherhood wasn't for her. Haven't heard from her since." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We're better off." It was clearly a lie, or at least a half-truth, but Elena didn't push. They left the diner 20 minutes later. Lucas insisted on paying for his own meal, and Elena didn't argue. When they got back to Maplewood, Dr. Patel was waiting with an update. Lily was awake and asking for her dad. Lucas disappeared into the recovery room without saying goodbye, and Elena drove home feeling hollowed out and more confused than ever about what she was doing and why. The next morning at work, Elena found an envelope on her desk. Inside was a check for $500 and a note in neat, cramped handwriting. "First installment. Thank you. L." She stared at it for a long time, then folded it carefully and put it in her wallet. Over the next week, things shifted in small, almost imperceptible ways. Lucas started acknowledging her in the hallways. Not friendly exactly, but not hostile either. He'd nod when they passed, sometimes offer a brief morning if they happened to arrive at the same time. It wasn't much, but it felt like progress. Elena, for her part, tried to give him space. She stopped researching treatment options, stopped hovering. She focused on her own work, on the projects that actually mattered to her career. But she still found herself glancing at his desk more often than she should, watching for signs of how he was holding up. The signs weren't great. Lucas looked progressively worse as the days went on. The dark circles under his eyes deepened. His hands shook when he typed. Twice, Elena saw him go into the single-stall bathroom and stay there for 15 minutes, and when he came out, his eyes were red. Phil noticed too, but his response was less sympathetic. "Hale's falling apart," he said one afternoon, loud enough for half the office to hear. "Can't even make it through a full day without falling asleep at his desk." Elena looked over and saw that Lucas had indeed nodded off, his head resting on his folded arms, his computer screen still glowing with an unfinished spreadsheet. "Maybe he's sick," Jessica offered. "Maybe he's lazy," Phil shot back. "Either way, his last day is Friday. Good riddance." Elena felt anger flare hot in her chest, but before she could say anything, Lucas jerked awake, disoriented. He looked around, saw people staring, and his face went red. He grabbed his coat and left without a word. Elena found him in the parking lot, sitting in his car with the engine off. She knocked on the window. He looked at her, and for a second she thought he might tell her to leave again, but instead he just unlocked the door. Elena climbed into the passenger seat. "You don't have to check on me every time I have a bad day," Lucas said. "I know, but I'm going to anyway." Lucas let out a long breath. Lily's not sleeping. The treatment helped with the inflammation, but now she's having nightmares. Wakes up screaming every 2 hours. I'm trying, but I can't function on this little sleep." "Have you talked to Dr. Patel?" "She said it's normal, trauma response. Could last weeks, could last months. Just have to ride it out." "What about asking someone to help at night? A family member, or—" "I don't have family," Lucas said flatly. "My parents are dead. No siblings. And I'm not paying a stranger to deal with my daughter's nightmares." Elena wanted to offer, but she knew how that would go. Instead, she said, "What about a sleep specialist or therapy for Lily?" "More money I don't have." Lucas said, "I know. Okay. I know I'm drowning. I know I need help. But every solution costs money or time, and I don't have either." His voice cracked. "I'm trying so hard, and it's still not enough." Elena reached out without thinking and put her hand on his shoulder. He flinched, but didn't pull away. "You're doing everything you can," she said. "That counts for something." "Does it? Because from where I'm sitting, it feels like I'm just failing in slow motion." Elena didn't have an answer for that, so they just sat there in the car, in silence, while the afternoon light faded around them. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Lucas's face, the exhaustion and desperation etched into every line. She thought about Lily, waking up screaming, and Lucas trying to comfort her while running on fumes. Around 2 in the morning, she made a decision. The next day, she went to Phil's office. "I need to talk to you about Lucas Hale." Phil looked up from his computer, annoyed. "What about him?" "I want to buy out his notice period." Phil blinked. "What?" "His last day is Friday. I'll pay his salary for those remaining days if you let him leave now. He needs the time." Why would you do that?" "Because he's dealing with a family emergency and he needs flexibility. And because this company is losing a good employee over a stupid policy." Phil leaned back in his chair, studying her. "You got a thing for him or something?" Elena felt heat rise to her face. "No, I just think he deserves better treatment than he's getting." "Uh-huh." Phil didn't look convinced. "Look, I appreciate the sentiment, but I can't just let him walk early. We've got deadlines. Then hire a temp, or distribute his workload, but stop pretending you're firing him because he's not a team player. You're firing him because he has a life outside this office, and that offends you." Phil's face went red. "Careful, Cross. You're dangerously close to insubordination, and you're dangerously close to a lawsuit for wrongful termination. Lucas has a disabled daughter. Pretty sure that gives him legal protections you're violating." It was a bluff. Elena had no idea if that was true, but Phil's expression flickered with uncertainty. "Fine," he said after a long moment. "He can leave today, but I'm not paying out his notice period." "I will." "Your funeral." Phil turned back to his computer, dismissing her. Elena left his office, her hands shaking with adrenaline, and went straight to Lucas's desk. "Come on," she said. "You're done here." Lucas looked up, confused. "What?" "I talked to Phil. You don't have to finish out the week. Go home. Be with Lily." "Elena, what did you—" "Don't argue. Just go." Lucas stared at her for a long moment, something unreadable crossing his face. Then he stood up, grabbed his coat, and walked out without another word. Elena watched him leave, wondering if she'd just made things better or infinitely worse. The answer came 3 days later when Lucas showed up at her apartment. She opened the door to find him standing there, looking tired but cleaner than he had in weeks, like he'd actually slept, actually showered. "How did you know where I live?" Elena asked. "Employee directory. Can I come in?" Elena stepped aside, and Lucas walked into her small living room, taking in the secondhand furniture and the stack of work files on the coffee table. "I came to say thank you," he said, "for getting me out of there early. I've spent the last 3 days actually being present for Lily, and it's made a difference. She's still having nightmares, but they're getting shorter, less intense. That's good." "Yeah." Lucas paused. "And I came to tell you I can't pay you back." Elena's stomach dropped. "What?" "Not all of it, anyway. Not anytime soon. I've been doing the math, and even if I find another job immediately, it'll take me years to pay off $12,000 while covering Lily's ongoing therapy." "Lucas, I told you. I know what you told me, but I need you to understand something." He looked at her directly, his eyes intense. "I hate owing people. I hate feeling like I'm in debt, like someone has leverage over me. It makes me feel weak and trapped and—" He broke off, frustrated. "But I also know I can't do this alone. And you keep showing up, even when I tell you not to, even when I'm an asshole to you. So I'm asking, why?" Elena sat down on the couch, suddenly exhausted. "Honestly, I don't know anymore. At first it was guilt about my brother, then it was just, I don't know. I saw you fighting so hard for Lily, and I wanted to help. And now it's—" She hesitated. "Now I care. About both of you, and I can't just walk away." Lucas was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down next to her, keeping a careful distance. "I'm going to propose something," he said, "and I need you to really think about it before you answer. Okay? Let me pay you back in a different way. Not money, but time. Help. Whatever you need. You want your apartment painted? I'll do it. You need someone to drive you to the airport at 4 in the morning? I'm there. You need a reference for a job, help moving, someone to watch your cat? I don't care what it is. I'll be there. Elena felt something catch in her chest. You don't have to. I know I don't have to, but I need to. This is the only way I can accept what you've done without feeling like I'm drowning in debt. His voice was raw, honest. Please. Elena looked at him, at this stubborn, exhausted, fiercely loving man who couldn't accept help without finding a way to give something back, and felt something shift inside her. Okay, she said. Deal. Lucas let out a breath, relief washing over his face. Okay. Good. They sat there in awkward silence for a moment. Then Lucas said, I should go. Lily's with a neighbor, and I don't want to impose too long. Wait. Elena stood up. Before you go, I found something. Another potential treatment option. I wasn't going to bring it up, but since things are different now, I thought you should know. She pulled out a folder from her desk and handed it to him. Lucas opened it, scanning the contents. It's a physical therapy program in California, Elena explained. They specialize in pediatric spinal injuries. Insurance covers most of it, but you'd have to relocate for 6 months. Lucas looked up, his expression conflicted. I can't afford to move to California. I know, but I thought maybe it's something to keep in mind for the future. Lucas closed the folder carefully. Thank you for still looking out for us, even when I keep telling you to stop. Someone has to. Lucas almost smiled. Yeah, I guess someone does. He left, and Elena stood in her empty apartment, feeling like something had fundamentally changed between them, though she couldn't quite name what. 2 weeks passed before Elena heard from Lucas again. She'd gone back to her regular routine: work, gym, weekend brunches with friends who asked too many questions about why she seemed distracted. She told herself she wasn't waiting for him to reach out, that their arrangement didn't require constant contact. But she checked her phone more than usual, and every time it buzzed with a notification that wasn't from him, she felt a small, irrational disappointment. Then, on a Tuesday evening, her doorbell rang. She opened it to find Lucas standing there with Lily. The little girl was in a wheelchair this time, her leg braces visible beneath purple sweatpants, and she was holding a drawing that had been folded and unfolded so many times the creases were starting to tear. Hi, Lucas said. He looked uncomfortable, like he'd rehearsed this moment and forgotten all his lines. Sorry to just show up. I would have called, but I don't have your number. It's fine. Elena looked down at Lily, who was staring at her with wide, curious eyes. Hi there. This is the lady I told you about, Lucas said to his daughter, the one who helped us at the hospital. Lily thrust the drawing forward. I made you this. Elena took it carefully. It was a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures, one tall with dark hair, one shorter, and one very small in a wheelchair. They were all holding hands under a yellow sun that took up half the page. That's you, Lily said, pointing to the tall figure. And that's Daddy, and that's me. We're at the park. Elena felt something tight and painful in her chest. This is beautiful, Lily. Thank you. She wanted to give it to you in person, Lucas said quietly. She's been asking about you. Elena looked at him, surprised. Really? Yeah. I might have mentioned you a few times. Lily tugged on her father's sleeve. Can we go to the park now? You promised. Lucas checked his watch. It's almost dark, kiddo. But you promised. I know, but it's fine, Elena said quickly. There's a park 2 blocks from here. It has lights. We could go for a bit. Lucas hesitated, clearly torn. We don't want to intrude on your evening. You're not. I was just going to watch TV and eat leftover pasta. This is better. Lily's face lit up. Please, Daddy? Lucas sighed, but Elena could see him softening. Okay, but just for half an hour. The park was small, mostly empty at this hour except for a couple jogging laps around the perimeter. Lucas pushed Lily's wheelchair to the accessible section of the playground, where there was a ramp leading up to a platform with a steering wheel and telescope. Lily immediately started spinning the wheel, narrating an elaborate story about being a ship captain. Lucas stood next to Elena, watching his daughter with the kind of attention that suggested he was always waiting for something to go wrong. She seems good, Elena said. She has good days and bad days. Today's a good day. Lucas paused. The nightmares are getting better. She only woke up once last night. That's progress. Yeah. He glanced at her. I've been meaning to call you, or text, or something, but I didn't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I feel like I do. You did this huge thing for us, and then I just disappeared. Elena shrugged. You had stuff to deal with. I get it. Still, Lucas shoved his hands in his pockets. I've been job hunting. It's not going great. Turns out getting fired doesn't look awesome on a resume, even if you try to spin it. Have you tried temp agencies? Yeah, got a few interviews, but nothing solid. Everyone wants someone who can work flexible hours, and I can't do that until Lily's more stable. He let out a frustrated breath. I'm starting to think I'm unemployable. You're not unemployable, you're just in a difficult position. That's a nice way of saying I'm screwed. Elena watched Lily spin the wheel, her small hands gripping it with determination. What if you didn't look for a traditional job? Lucas frowned. What do you mean? Freelance work? Consulting? Something where you set your own hours. She turned to him. You're good at logistics, right? Coordinating shipments? Managing supply chains? I mean, yeah, that's what I did. So do it independently. There are tons of small businesses that need help with that stuff but can't afford a full-time employee. You could charge by the project, work from home when you need to. Lucas looked skeptical. I don't know the first thing about running my own business. So learn. There's a million resources online, and I could help you get started, building a website, finding clients, whatever you need. Elena, I'm not trying to save you again, she said quickly. I'm just saying there are options you might not have considered. Lucas was quiet for a moment, watching Lily. Then he said, Why are you so invested in this? It wasn't an accusation, just a genuine question. Elena didn't have a good answer. I don't know, she admitted. Maybe I like fixing things. Or maybe I see potential in you that you don't see in yourself. Lucas looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. You barely know me. I know enough. Before he could respond, Lily called out, Daddy, come steer the ship with me. Lucas went to his daughter, leaving Elena standing alone on the playground's edge, wondering why she kept saying things that made her sound like she cared more than she should. They stayed at the park for 45 minutes, longer than Lucas had promised. By the time they left, Lily was yawning, her head drooping against the wheelchair's headrest. Lucas lifted her into his arms. She was light enough that he could carry her easily, though Elena saw him wince slightly, like his back hurt. You want help? Elena asked. I've got her. But his voice was strained. They walked back to Elena's building in comfortable silence. When they reached the parking lot, Lucas carefully settled Lily into her car seat. The little girl was already half asleep, murmuring something about pirate ships. Thanks for tonight, Lucas said, straightening up. She needed this. What about you? What do you need? The question seemed to catch him off guard. He looked at her for a long moment, then said, Honestly, I don't even know anymore. I've been so focused on Lily that I've kind of forgotten I'm a person too. That's not sustainable. Tell me about it. He leaned against his car, suddenly looking exhausted. I used to have hobbies, friends, a life outside of being a dad. Now I can't remember the last time I did something just for me. What did you used to do before all this? Lucas thought about it. I played guitar. Not well, but enough to mess around, and I used to go hiking on weekends. Nothing crazy, just trails around Boulder. It helped me think. You should do that again. With what time? Make time. Even just an hour. You can't pour from an empty cup. Lucas smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Is that from a motivational poster? Probably. Doesn't make it less true. He pushed off the car. I should get her home, but would you want to have coffee sometime? Actual coffee, not just running into each other in parking lots. Elena felt something flutter in her chest. Like a date? Lucas's eyes widened. No, I mean, not that you're not. I just meant... He stopped, flustered. I meant as friends. As thank you. For everything. Oh, right. Elena felt foolish for even suggesting otherwise. Sure. Coffee sounds good. Okay, good. Lucas got into his car, then rolled down the window. I'll text you. Once I get your number. which I still don't have. Elena pulled out her phone and they exchanged numbers, the transaction feeling oddly formal after everything they'd been through. As Lucas drove away, Elena stood in the parking lot holding her phone, trying to figure out why she felt disappointed that he'd clarified it wasn't a date. Over the next few weeks, Lucas and Elena fell into an unexpected rhythm. They'd meet for coffee every few days, usually at a place near Maplewood, so Lucas could easily get to Lily's therapy sessions. They talked about work, or Lucas's lack thereof, and about Elena's projects at the office, which had gotten increasingly demanding now that she was covering some of Lucas's old responsibilities. "Phil's been riding me hard about the quarterly reports," Elena said one afternoon, stirring sugar into her coffee. "He keeps saying I need to be more of a team player, which is rich coming from him." "He's still mad you called him out," Lucas said. "Probably, but I don't really care. I'm putting out feelers for other jobs anyway." Lucas looked surprised. "You are?" "Yeah, I've been there long enough. Time to move up or move out." "Where would you go?" Elena shrugged. "I've got a couple of interviews lined up. One's with a tech startup in Boulder, another's with a consulting firm in Denver. Both would be a significant pay bump." "That's great." Lucas sounded genuine, but there was something else in his voice, too. "You deserve it." "Thanks." Elena paused. "What about you? Any luck with the freelance thing?" Lucas had taken her advice and started putting together a portfolio, though he'd been dragging his feet on actually reaching out to potential clients. "I've got a website now," he said. "Basic, but functional. And I've been networking, or trying to. It's weird, selling yourself to people when you're used to just clocking in and doing your job. It gets easier." "Does it? Because right now it feels like I'm begging strangers to give me a chance." "You're not begging. You're offering a valuable service." Lucas gave her a tired smile. "You're really good at the pep talk thing. You know that?" "I've had practice." They fell into silence, both of them watching the street outside through the coffee shop window. It was early November now, and the leaves had turned brilliant shades of orange and red before falling to the ground in thick, wet piles. "Can I ask you something?" Lucas said after a while. "Sure." "Do you ever regret it? Helping me and Lily?" Elena frowned. "Why would I regret it?" "Because it's cost you. Money, time, emotional energy, and you didn't have to do any of it." "I know I didn't have to." "So why did you?" It was the same question he'd asked before, and Elena still didn't have a perfect answer. "Because I couldn't not," she said finally. "Does that make sense?" "Not really. But, I mean, I saw you struggling, and I had the means to help, and I just couldn't walk away, even if it was complicated, even if you didn't want me to." Lucas looked at her for a long moment. "You're kind of relentless, you know that? I've been called worse." "It's not an insult, just an observation." He took a sip of his coffee. "Most people would have given up on me by now." "Well, I'm not most people." "Yeah," Lucas said quietly. "I'm starting to figure that out." Something shifted in the air between them, something Elena couldn't quite name. Before she could analyze it, Lucas's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his expression changed. "It's Dr. Patel. I shouldn't—" "Go. Take it." Lucas stepped outside, and through the window, Elena watched his face go from neutral to tense to something close to devastated. Her stomach dropped. When he came back inside, he didn't sit down. "I have to go," he said, his voice tight. "Lily's having a bad reaction to one of her medications. They need me there. I'll drive you." "You don't have to—" "Lucas, you look like you're about to pass out. I'm driving." He didn't argue. They made it to Maplewood in 12 minutes, Elena breaking several traffic laws in the process. Lucas was out of the car before she'd fully stopped, running toward the entrance. Elena parked and followed, her heart pounding. Inside, Dr. Patel was waiting, her expression calm but serious. "She's stable," she said immediately, and Lucas's knees nearly buckled with relief. "But she had an allergic reaction to the new anti-inflammatory we started yesterday. We've given her antihistamines and she's responding well, but we need to keep her under observation for a few hours." "Can I see her?" "Of course. Room 7. Lucas took off down the hallway. Elena started to follow, then stopped, realizing she had no place in that room. She sat down in the waiting area instead, prepared to wait as long as it took. An hour passed, then 2. Around the 3-hour mark, Lucas emerged, looking wrung out. She's okay, he said, sitting down heavily next to Elena. Scared, but okay. They're going to discharge her in about 20 minutes. That's good. Yeah. Lucas rubbed his face. I can't keep doing this. Elena's heart sank. Doing what? Living in constant crisis mode, waiting for the next disaster. I can't. His voice broke. I'm so tired, Elena. I'm so tired of being scared all the time. Without thinking, Elena reached over and took his hand. He didn't pull away. I know, she said softly. I know you are. They sat there in silence, Elena's hand wrapped around Lucas's, until a nurse came out to tell them Lily was ready to go home. Elena drove them back to Lucas's apartment, a small two-bedroom in a complex that had seen better days. Lucas carried Lily inside while Elena hovered awkwardly by the door, not sure if she should leave or stay. You can come in, Lucas said, reading her hesitation. If you want. Elena stepped inside. The apartment was clean but sparse, with mismatched furniture and walls that needed paint. There were drawings taped everywhere, Lily's artwork, bright splashes of color in an otherwise beige space. Lucas disappeared into what must have been Lily's room, and Elena could hear him talking softly to his daughter, the words too low to make out. When he emerged 15 minutes later, he looked marginally less stressed. She's asleep, he said. Finally. You should sleep too. Yeah, I will. But he made no move toward his bedroom. Instead, he sat down on the couch, and after a moment, Elena sat next to him. I've been thinking about that program in California, Lucas said suddenly. The one you told me about. Okay. I can't do it. Not now. But maybe in 6 months, if I can get the freelance thing off the ground, if Lily's stable enough. Maybe then. That sounds like a good plan. It also sounds impossible. Most good things do at first. Lucas turned to look at her. Do you always have an answer for everything? No, but I'm good at faking it. He almost smiled. Then his expression grew serious. I need to tell you something. Elena's stomach tightened. Okay. I've been keeping track of everything you've done. The money, the time, the job stuff, driving me here tonight. And I know I said I'd pay you back in favors, but that doesn't feel like enough anymore. Lucas, you don't owe me. Let me finish. He took a breath. You've become important to me, to both of us. And I don't know what to do with that because I'm still a mess, and I don't have room in my life for anything beyond keeping Lily alive. But I also can't imagine not having you around anymore. Elena's heart was doing something complicated and painful in her chest. What are you saying? I don't know, Lucas admitted. I'm saying I care about you, and I'm also saying I can't offer you anything right now. And I'm also saying I'm sorry if that's confusing or unfair. It's not unfair, Elena said quietly. It's honest. Is that enough? She thought about it. For now? Yeah, it is. Lucas nodded, relief washing over his face. Then, hesitantly, he reached out and pulled her into a hug. It was awkward at first, both of them uncertain, but then Elena relaxed into it and Lucas held on tighter, like she was the only thing keeping him from floating away. They stayed like that for a long time, not talking, just existing in the same space. When they finally pulled apart, Lucas looked embarrassed. Sorry, I don't do that. It's okay. I should let you go. You probably have work tomorrow. Elena did have work, and she should leave, but something made her say, I could stay. On the couch, in case Lily wakes up and you need help. Lucas looked like he wanted to argue, but exhaustion won out. Okay, yeah, that would be, thank you. He brought her a blanket and a pillow that smelled like laundry detergent, then disappeared into his room. Elena lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sounds of the apartment settling around her. Somewhere down the hall, she heard Lucas moving around, the creak of his bed as he lay down. She should feel weird about this, about being in his apartment, about the conversation they'd just had. But instead, she felt something else, something that felt dangerously close to belonging. Around 3 a.m, Lily started crying. Elena heard Lucas get up immediately, his footsteps quick in the hallway. She listened to him comfort his daughter, his voice low and soothing, until the crying stopped and silence returned. In the morning, Elena woke to the smell of coffee. She sat up, disoriented, and found Lucas in the kitchen, looking rumpled but functional. "Morning," he said, handing her a mug. "Sorry it's not better. I'm out of the good stuff." "It's fine." Elena took a sip. It was terrible, burnt and bitter, but she drank it anyway. "Lily's still sleeping. She usually wakes up around 8. Elena checked her phone. 7:15. "I should probably head out. Get ready for work." "Yeah, of course." Lucas walked her to the door. "Thanks for staying, and for last night, all of it. Any time." She meant it more than she probably should. Over the next month, Elena became a regular fixture in Lucas and Lily's life. She'd stop by after work sometimes, bringing dinner, or just sitting with Lily while Lucas handled phone calls with insurance companies and medical billing departments. She helped Lucas refine his business pitch and connected him with a few potential clients through her own network. She even came along to one of Lily's therapy sessions when Lucas's car broke down and he needed a ride. It felt natural, the way she fit into their small, chaotic world. But it also felt precarious, like she was building something on a foundation that hadn't fully set. Then, in early December, everything shifted again. Lucas called her at 10:30 on a Wednesday night, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Dr. Patel called. She wants to see me tomorrow morning. Said it's about Lily's latest scans." Elena sat up in bed, instantly awake. "Did she say what's wrong?" "No, just that we need to discuss treatment options." He let out a shaky breath. "That's never good, right? When they want to discuss options? It doesn't necessarily mean bad news." "You don't believe that?" He was right. She didn't. "Do you want me there?" Elena asked. "Tomorrow?" "You don't have to." "Do you want me there?" A long pause. Then quietly, "Yes." "Then I'll be there." She met him at Maplewood at 9 the next morning. Lucas looked like he hadn't slept, dark circles under his eyes, his jaw tight with tension. Lily was with a neighbor. Lucas hadn't wanted her to hear whatever Dr. Patel had to say. They sat in Dr. Patel's office, a small room with motivational posters on the walls and a desk cluttered with files. The doctor came in carrying a folder, her expression professionally neutral. "Thank you for coming in," she said, sitting down across from them. "I wanted to discuss Lily's progress and some concerns I have moving forward." Lucas's hand found Elena's under the table, gripping it tight. "The good news is that Lily has made significant improvement over the past few months," Dr. Patel continued. "Her strength and mobility have increased beyond what we initially projected. The treatment we did in September was very effective." "And the bad news?" Lucas asked, his voice flat. Dr. Patel opened the folder. "The scans show that while the inflammation has decreased, there's still significant nerve damage that's unlikely to heal with standard physical therapy alone. To give Lily the best chance at a full recovery, or as close to full as possible, she would need a more aggressive treatment protocol." "What kind of protocol?" "There's a specialized surgical intervention that could help. It's a relatively new procedure, very delicate, but the success rate for pediatric patients is promising. The surgeon I'd recommend is Dr. Rahman at Boston Children's Hospital." Elena felt Lucas's hand tighten around hers. "You mentioned him before," Lucas said quietly. "Yes. He's one of the best in the country for this type of surgery." Dr. Patel paused. "The procedure itself would be covered by most insurance plans, but there are associated costs, preoperative testing, travel expenses, potential complications requiring extended hospital stays. And Lucas, I have to be honest with you. Even with insurance, you're looking at significant out-of-pocket expenses, probably $50,000 to $70,000. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Lucas let go of Elena's hand and stood up abruptly. "I can't afford that. You know I can't afford that." "I understand, but I wanted you to have all the information so you could make an informed decision about Lily's care." "What decision?" Lucas's voice rose. "I don't have a decision. I have one option, which is to keep doing what we're doing and hope for the best." "There might be other options," Dr. Patel said calmly. "Financial assistance programs, fundraising. I already told Elena I'm not putting my daughter on the internet for strangers to pity." "Then you need to consider what you're willing to sacrifice to give Lily this chance." Lucas looked at her, his expression somewhere between fury and desperation. "What I'm willing to sacrifice? I've sacrificed everything. My job, my savings, my entire life. What more do you want from me? Dr. Patel's expression softened. I'm not asking for anything, Lucas. I'm just telling you what's available. What you do with that information is up to you. Lucas walked out without another word. Elena thanked Dr. Patel and followed him, finding him in the parking lot, pacing beside his car. $70,000, he said, not looking at her. I barely have $700 in my checking account. Elena didn't know what to say. Any words felt inadequate. I can't do this, Lucas continued, his voice cracking. I can't keep failing her. Every time I think we're making progress, something else happens. Another crisis. Another impossible choice. He finally looked at Elena, and his eyes were red. What kind of father can't even afford to save his own kid? You're not failing her. You're doing everything you can. It's not enough. It's never enough. Elena stepped closer. Then let me help. Really help. Not just research and coffee and moral support. Let me, pay for it? Lucas laughed bitterly. You've already given me $12,000 I can't pay back. You think I'm going to let you add another 70 on top of that? It's not about letting me. It's about Lily getting what she needs. And what about what I need? What about my dignity, my self-respect? At what point do I stop being a father and start being a charity case? That's not what this is. Yes, it is, Lucas's voice echoed across the parking lot. You keep swooping in and fixing things, and I keep taking it because I'm desperate, and I don't know what else to do. But at some point I have to ask myself what I'm teaching my daughter. That we survive by depending on other people's generosity? That we're not capable of standing on our own? You are standing on your own, Elena said, her own voice rising now. You've been standing on your own for months. But there's a difference between independence and stubbornness, and right now you're choosing your pride over Lily's recovery. The words came out harsher than she intended, and she saw Lucas flinch. You don't get to say that to me, he said quietly. You don't get to question how I'm handling this. I'm not questioning. Yes, you are. You've been questioning it from the start, showing up at the rehab center, following me around, making decisions about my daughter's care without asking me first. And I let it happen because I was too tired and too desperate to fight back. But I'm done. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. Done with what? With this. With you constantly inserting yourself into our lives like you have some kind of claim to us. I never said I had a claim, but you act like it. And I let you because it felt good to have someone care, but it's not fair to any of us. I can't keep taking from you, and you can't keep giving without expecting something in return. I don't expect anything. Everyone expects something, Elena, even if they don't say it out loud. Lucas opened his car door. I think we need some space from each other, for a while. Lucas, wait. But he was already getting in the car, already pulling out of the parking spot. Elena stood there watching him drive away, feeling like the ground had opened up beneath her. Elena didn't cry until she got home. She sat in her car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, staring at nothing, replaying the conversation over and over. Then she went upstairs, locked her apartment door, and let herself fall apart. She'd known this was coming. Some part of her had always known. You couldn't insert yourself into someone else's tragedy without eventually hitting a wall. Lucas was right. She had been acting like she had some claim to him and Lily, like her money and her research and her good intentions gave her a seat at their table. And maybe she had expected something in return. Not gratitude exactly, but something. Recognition. Belonging. A place in their lives that felt permanent instead of provisional. The worst part was that she couldn't even be angry at him. He'd drawn a boundary, and she'd crossed it repeatedly. She told herself it was about helping, about doing the right thing, but how much of it had been about her own need to feel useful? To fix something broken because she couldn't fix her brother, couldn't fix the distance between her and her parents, couldn't fix the hollow feeling that came from building a career without building a life. Her phone buzzed. For a second, she thought it might be Lucas, but it was Jessica from work asking about a project deadline. Elena ignored it. She spent the rest of the day on her couch, wrapped in a blanket, alternating between numbness and a sharp, acute sense of loss. By evening, she'd convinced herself that Lucas was right, that she needed to let go. And by midnight, she'd convinced herself of the opposite, that walking away now would be abandonment, that Lily needed that surgery, and someone had to make sure she got it. She didn't sleep well. The next morning, Elena dragged herself to work and threw herself into her projects with manic intensity. If she couldn't fix Lucas's life, She could at least fix spreadsheets and supply chain inefficiencies. Phil noticed her renewed focus and actually complimented her, which should have felt validating but instead felt hollow. A week passed. Then 2. Elena heard nothing from Lucas, and she didn't reach out. She told herself she was respecting his boundaries. She also checked her phone every hour like a teenager waiting for a text that would never come. Her friends noticed something was wrong. Sarah, her college roommate who now worked in marketing, cornered her at their usual Friday lunch spot. "Okay, what's going on with you?" "Nothing. I'm fine." "You've ordered a salad and haven't touched it. You're never fine when you order salad." Elena pushed a cherry tomato around her plate. "I'm just stressed about work." "Liar. You thrive on work stress. This is something else." Sarah leaned forward. "Is it a guy?" "No, maybe. I don't know." "Oh, it's definitely a guy." Sarah's eyes lit up with interest. "Tell me everything." "There's nothing to tell. He's just someone I was helping, and it got complicated, and now we're not talking anymore." "Helping how?" Elena hesitated, then gave Sarah the abbreviated version: single dad, sick kid, medical expenses, boundaries crossed. Sarah listened, her expression shifting from curious to concerned. "Elena, please tell me you didn't give this guy money." "I gave his daughter money for medical treatment." "How much?" Elena mumbled the number. $12,000? Are you insane?" "It's fine. I had savings." "You had a down payment. You've been talking about buying a place for 2 years." "And I'll save up again. It's not a big deal." "It's a huge deal." Sarah looked genuinely upset. "You barely know this person. You can't rescue every broken man who crosses your path." "I wasn't rescuing him. I was helping his daughter." "There's a difference?" Elena set down her fork. "Yes, there is." Sarah softened slightly. "Look, I get it. You have a big heart, but this guy clearly doesn't appreciate what you've done, and now you're miserable. That's not fair to you." "Life's not fair. If it was, 6-year-olds wouldn't get paralyzed in car accidents." "No, but you also don't have to sacrifice your own happiness trying to fix it." Elena wanted to argue, but she didn't have the energy. Sarah meant well. She just didn't understand. Nobody understood. That night, Elena found herself driving past Lucas's apartment complex. She didn't stop, didn't even slow down much, but she looked for his car in the parking lot. It was there, the same dented Civic, and for a brief, irrational moment, she considered knocking on his door. She kept driving. December arrived with early snow and holiday decorations that felt aggressively cheerful. Elena's company threw a Christmas party that she attended out of obligation, drinking too much wine and leaving early. Her job interviews had progressed. She had a second-round meeting scheduled with the consulting firm in January, but she couldn't muster much enthusiasm. Then, 3 weeks after their fight, Lucas called. Elena stared at her phone, his name on the screen, her heart doing something painful and complicated. She almost didn't answer, but on the 4th ring, she picked up. "Hello?" "Elena." His voice was rough, like he'd been arguing with himself about whether to make this call. "I need to talk to you." "Okay." "Not on the phone. Can you meet me somewhere?" They agreed on the coffee shop, the same one they'd been going to for months. Elena arrived first, ordered a drink she didn't want, and sat in the corner booth where they usually sat. When Lucas walked in, she was struck by how much worse he looked. Thinner, more exhausted, like the last 3 weeks had aged him years. He sat down across from her without ordering anything. "I'm sorry," he said immediately, "for what I said in the parking lot, about you inserting yourself into our lives. That was cruel and unfair." Elena wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. "It was also kind of true." "No, it wasn't. You were trying to help. I was the one who made it weird by taking my frustration out on you." "Why are you telling me this now?" Lucas looked down at his hands. "Because Lily asked about you, every day for 3 weeks. Where's Elena? When is Elena coming over? Can we call Elena?" And I kept making excuses, kept saying you were busy, until finally she asked me if you didn't like her anymore. Elena felt her throat tighten. "What did you tell her?" "I told her the truth, that I'd been a jerk and pushed you away, and that sometimes grown-ups make stupid mistakes." He finally met her eyes. "She told me I should apologize, so here I am." "You don't have to apologize because your 6-year-old told you to." "I'm not. I'm apologizing because I was wrong. Lucas ran a hand through his hair. I've spent the last 3 weeks trying to figure out how to handle the surgery situation, and I keep coming back to the same conclusion. I can't do it alone. I need help. And more than that, I want your help. Not because I have no other options, but because you're the person I trust most to have Lily's best interests at heart. Elena didn't know what to say. She'd imagined this conversation 100 different ways, and none of them had gone like this. "What are you asking me?" she said finally. "I'm asking if you'd be willing to help me figure this out. The fundraising, the financial planning, whatever it takes. I know it's a lot, and I know I have no right to ask after pushing you away, but..." He stopped, struggling. "I miss you. Lily misses you. And I think maybe we need you more than I was willing to admit." Elena felt something crack open in her chest. "I miss you too. Both of you." Relief washed over Lucas's face. "So you'll help?" "On one condition. Anything. You stop treating this like a transaction. Stop keeping score of who owes what. We're either in this together or we're not, but I can't keep doing this dance where you accept help and then feel guilty about it." Lucas was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's fair, but I need you to do something too." "What?" "Be honest with me about why you're doing this, because I need to know it's not just about guilt or some savior complex. I need to know..." He hesitated. "I need to know what I mean to you, what we mean to you." It was the most direct he'd ever been, and it caught Elena completely off guard. "You mean..." She stopped, trying to find the right words. "You mean more than I probably should let you mean, given the circumstances. Lily's an amazing kid who deserves every chance at a normal life, and you're..." She looked at him, at this exhausted, stubborn, fiercely loving man. "You're someone I care about, a lot. Maybe too much. There's no such thing as too much. I think there might be, especially when you're dealing with everything you're dealing with." Lucas reached across the table and took her hand. "What if I told you I care about you too? And that scares the hell out of me because I don't have room in my life for a relationship, but I also can't stop thinking about you?" Elena's heart was doing something erratic. "I'd say we're both idiots with terrible timing." "Probably." Lucas squeezed her hand. "But maybe we can be idiots together." It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't even really a relationship definition. But it was honest, and it was enough. They spent the next hour mapping out a plan. Lucas had done some research on his own, found a few grant programs for families with children who had disabilities, identified some potential fundraising platforms that felt less invasive than GoFundMe. Elena added what she'd learned, and together they built a strategy that felt achievable, if ambitious. "I'll need to swallow my pride about the crowdfunding," Lucas admitted, "but if we frame it right, focus on Lily's story without making it feel exploitative, maybe it won't be so bad. I can help write the campaign, make sure it hits the right tone. And I'll reach out to Dr. Rahman's office, see if we can get a consultation scheduled. Even just knowing the exact cost breakdown would help." They left the coffee shop feeling cautiously optimistic. As they walked to their cars, Lucas stopped suddenly. "I forgot to tell you, I got a client, an actual paying client." Elena turned, surprised. "What? When?" "Last week. Small manufacturing company that needed help streamlining their shipping logistics. It's not huge money, but it's something, proof of concept, you know?" "Lucas, that's amazing!" He smiled, and it was the first genuine smile she'd seen from him in weeks. "Yeah, it felt good. Like maybe I'm not completely unemployable after all." "I told you weren't." "You did. I should listen to you more often." "Yes, you should." They stood there in the parking lot, neither quite ready to leave. Then Lucas did something unexpected. He pulled her into a hug. It was less awkward than the last one, more certain. Elena let herself lean into it, breathing in the smell of his laundry detergent, and something underneath that was just him. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for not giving up on us." "Thank you for calling." When they pulled apart, Lucas kept one hand on her shoulder. "Come over tomorrow? Lily would love to see you. And I make a mean grilled cheese." "I'd like that." The next day, Elena showed up at Lucas's apartment with a bag of art supplies she'd picked up at a craft store. Lily's face lit up when she opened the door, and the little girl threw her arms around Elena's legs with such force she nearly knocked her over. "You came back." "Of course I did." Elena knelt down to Lily's level. I brought you some new markers, the fancy ones that smell like fruit. Lily's eyes went wide. Can we draw right now? After lunch, Lucas said from the kitchen. Go wash your hands. Lily wheeled herself to the bathroom, chattering excitedly about all the things she was going to draw. Lucas came over, spatula in hand, looking domestic and rumpled in a way that made Elena's heart do something complicated. You didn't have to bring gifts, he said. I know. I wanted to. They ate grilled cheese at the small kitchen table, Lily dominating the conversation with a long, winding story about a dream she'd had involving dinosaurs and ice cream trucks. Elena watched Lucas interact with his daughter, patient, engaged, present in a way that made it clear this was the only version of himself he knew how to be anymore. After lunch, Elena and Lily spread out on the living room floor with the art supplies. Lily drew elaborate scenes of families and houses and flowers, narrating each element with serious concentration. Lucas watched from the couch, occasionally interjecting commentary or praise. That's Elena, Lily said, pointing to a tall stick figure with yellow hair. And that's Daddy, and that's me. We're all holding hands. Elena felt her throat get tight. It's beautiful, Lily. We're at the beach, Lily continued, because Daddy said maybe we can go to the beach someday when my legs work better. Lucas caught Elena's eye, and she saw the weight of that promise, the uncertainty of whether he'd ever be able to keep it. Later, after Lily had been tucked into bed, Lucas and Elena sat on the couch with mugs of tea, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. I talked to Dr. Rahman's office, Lucas said. They can get us in for a consultation in 3 weeks, after the holidays. That's good. Fast. Yeah, I had to pull some strings, call in a favor from Dr. Patel. He paused. The preliminary estimate for everything, surgery, hospital stay, post-op therapy, is $62,000. Insurance will cover maybe 15 of that. Elena did the math. So you need to raise $47,000. Give or take. Lucas looked overwhelmed just saying it out loud. I've never asked anyone for anything in my life. Now I'm about to ask the entire internet for 50 grand. You're not asking for yourself, you're asking for Lily. It still feels impossible. Elena set down her tea. What if it's not just crowdfunding? What if we combined it with other fundraising? A benefit event, maybe. Auction off donated items, sell tickets. Lucas looked skeptical. Who's going to come to a benefit for a kid they don't know? You'd be surprised. People want to help, especially when it involves children. And I know some people through work who might be willing to donate items or services. You'd organize that? We'd organize it, together. Lucas rubbed his face. This is insane. A month ago I was ready to push you out of my life, and now we're planning charity events. Life's weird like that. Yeah. He looked at her, his expression softening. I'm glad you're here. I know I don't say it enough, but I am. I'm glad I'm here too. They fell into silence, both of them exhausted, but reluctant to end the evening. Eventually, Elena stood to leave, and Lucas walked her to the door. Same time next week? He asked. I'll bring Chinese food. You don't have to keep bringing food. I know, but your grilled cheese needs a break. Lucas smiled, and for a moment Elena thought he might kiss her, but instead he just squeezed her hand and said goodnight, and she drove home feeling both satisfied and vaguely disappointed. Over the next 2 weeks, Elena threw herself into planning. She reached out to venues, contacted local businesses about donations, designed a simple website for the fundraising campaign. Lucas worked on the crowdfunding page, writing and rewriting Lily's story until it felt honest without being manipulative. They met almost every day, sometimes at coffee shops, sometimes at Lucas's apartment, once at Elena's place when his heat went out and he needed somewhere warm to work. The boundaries between them grew softer, more permeable. Lucas started texting her random updates about his day. Elena started keeping granola bars in her purse because Lucas always forgot to eat lunch. They fell into an easy rhythm that felt almost like a relationship, even if neither of them named it as such. The crowdfunding campaign went live on a Tuesday morning in mid-December. Elena sat with Lucas in his apartment, both of them staring at his laptop screen as he hit the publish button. Well, Lucas said, there it is. My daughter's medical crisis available for public consumption. You wrote it beautifully. People are going to want to help, or they're going to scroll past it and forget about it in 5 seconds. You're very pessimistic, you know that? I'm realistic. But within an hour, they had their first donation, then another. By the end of the day, they'd raised $1,800. Lucas stared at the number like it was a mistake. People are actually doing this. I told you they would. He refreshed the page. 2,100. This is insane. Elena watched donations trickle in throughout the evening. $20 here, $50 there, $100 from someone who left a comment about their own daughter's recovery journey. By the time she went home, they'd crossed 3,000. Lucas texted her at midnight, $4,200. I can't believe this is real. Elena texted back, believe it. People are good. His response came 30 seconds later. Thank you for making me do this. She fell asleep smiling. The campaign continued to grow over the next week, accelerating as people shared it on social media. Local news picked it up, a human interest piece about a single father fighting for his daughter's recovery. Lucas hated being on camera, but he did the interview anyway, and Elena watched it from her couch, seeing the way he talked about Lily with such fierce, unguarded love that it made her chest hurt. The benefit event was scheduled for January 15th at a community center that had donated the space. Elena had secured donations from local businesses, a weekend getaway, restaurant gift certificates, signed sports memorabilia from a Denver Broncos player whose cousin she'd gone to college with. Lucas recruited his new freelance clients to contribute items or services, and Dr. Patel agreed to speak at the event about Lily's case. They were making it happen. Against all odds, they were actually making it happen. But success came with complications. The attention on Lucas's story brought out armchair critics, people who questioned why he was asking for money instead of getting a better job, people who suggested he was exploiting his daughter, people who thought he should just accept whatever outcome insurance would cover. Most of the comments were supportive, but the negative ones ate at Lucas in a way Elena could see. Someone said I should give Lily up for adoption, he told her one evening, his voice tight. Said she'd have a better life with a family that could afford to take care of her. Elena felt anger flash hot through her. That person is an idiot. What if they're right? They're not. Lily needs you. Money doesn't change that. Money changes everything. No, it doesn't. It helps, but it doesn't change what matters. You're her father. You're the person who shows up every day, who fights for her, who loves her unconditionally. That's what she needs. Lucas looked at her for a long moment. You really believe that? Yes. And you should too. He nodded slowly, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Thank you for the reality check. Anytime. By the end of December, the crowdfunding campaign had raised $28,000. The benefit event had sold out its 200 tickets at $50 each, adding another $10,000. Combined with Lucas's savings and some money Dr. Patel had helped him secure through a hospital grant program, they were at $45,000. They needed $47,000. The consultation with Dr. Rahman was scheduled for January 8th. As the date approached, Elena could see Lucas's anxiety ratcheting up. He second-guessed everything, the fundraising, the surgery itself, whether he was making the right choice. What if it doesn't work? He asked her on New Year's Eve. They were at his apartment, Lily already asleep, the two of them sitting on the couch watching the countdown on TV with the sound muted. What if it does? Elena countered. That's not an answer. Neither is catastrophizing. Lucas leaned back, closing his eyes. I'm terrified, Elena, of making the wrong call, of putting her through more pain for nothing, He stopped. Of losing her somehow. Elena moved closer, taking his hand. You're not going to lose her. She's strong. You've seen how strong she is. She's 6. She shouldn't have to be strong. I know, but she is anyway, and she's got you, and she's got a whole community of people rooting for her. She squeezed his hand. She's going to be okay. You don't know that. No, but I believe it, and I think you should too. Lucas opened his eyes, looking at her with an intensity that made her heart stutter. What did I do to deserve you? You didn't do anything. You just let me in. Finally, after fighting you for months. Better late than never. The countdown on the TV reached 0, and fireworks exploded silently on the screen. Lucas turned to her, and this time he didn't hesitate. He leaned in and kissed her, soft and tentative at first, then deeper when she kissed him back. When they pulled apart, Elena's head was spinning. I've wanted to do that for a while, Lucas admitted. Me too. This probably complicates things. Definitely. Are we okay with that? Elena thought about it. Yeah, I think we are. They kissed again, and for a few minutes the weight of everything else fell away. Then Lily called out from her bedroom. Not a nightmare, just asking for water. And the spell broke. Even if the surgery doesn't work? Even if we end up buried in medical debt anyway? Even then. She took his face in her hands, making him look at her. I'm not walking away. You need to trust that. Lucas searched her face, looking for doubt or hesitation. When he didn't find any, he kissed her again, slower this time, like he was memorizing the feel of it. Okay, he whispered against her lips. I trust you. It was the most terrifying and exhilarating thing Elena had ever heard. The morning of January 8th arrived gray and cold, the kind of winter day that made Denver feel like it was holding its breath. Elena picked up Lucas and Lily at 6 in the morning for the drive to the airport. They were flying to Boston for the consultation with Dr. Rahman, a trip funded partly by the crowdfunding campaign and partly by airline miles Elena had been hoarding for years. Lily was excited about the plane ride, chattering about clouds and whether they'd see any birds up there. Lucas was quiet, his jaw tight, staring out the window as Elena drove. You okay? She asked quietly. Ask me after we talk to the doctor. The flight was uneventful. Lily pressed her face against the window during takeoff, squealing with delight, while Lucas gripped the armrest hard enough to turn his knuckles white. Elena reached over and put her hand on his, and he didn't let go until they were at cruising altitude. Boston Children's Hospital was enormous, a sprawling complex that made Maplewood look like an urgent care clinic. They checked in at reception and were directed to Dr. Rahman's office on the 4th floor. The waiting room had murals of cartoon animals and a play area where Lily immediately wheeled herself over to investigate the toys. Lucas sat down next to Elena, his leg bouncing. What if he says she's not a candidate? He said under his breath. Then we figure out plan B. I don't have a plan B. Then we make one. Together. Before Lucas could respond, a nurse called them back. Dr. Rahman's office was warm and cluttered with medical journals and framed photos of children, presumably former patients. The doctor himself was younger than Elena expected, maybe mid-40s, with kind eyes and hands that moved constantly as he talked. You must be Lily, he said, kneeling down to her level. I hear you're pretty tough. Lily nodded seriously. I can do 12 steps on the bars now. 12? That's impressive. He looked up at Lucas. And your dad. Dr. Patel sent over Lily's files. I've reviewed everything. Lucas's throat worked. And? Dr. Rahman stood, gesturing for them to sit. I'll be direct with you, because I think that's what you need. Lily's case is complicated. The nerve damage from the accident is significant, and while she's made remarkable progress with physical therapy, there are limitations to how much further she can improve without surgical intervention. But the surgery would help. In theory, yes. The procedure I've developed targets the specific type of nerve compression Lily's experiencing. We go in, decompress the affected nerves, and in some cases use grafts to bridge damaged sections. He pulled up images on his computer, scans of Lily's spine, areas highlighted in red and yellow. Based on what I'm seeing here, I believe Lily would be an excellent candidate. The surgery isn't without risks, but the potential benefit is substantial. Elena felt Lucas sag with relief next to her. What kind of timeline are we looking at? Lucas asked. If we move forward, I'd want to schedule it within the next 2 months. The sooner we intervene, the better her chances of optimal recovery. Dr. Rahman leaned back in his chair. I understand there are financial concerns. My office can work with you on payment plans, and there are additional grant programs we can explore. Lucas nodded, but Elena could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. How many payment plans? How many years of debt? How much of his life would be consumed by trying to pay this off? We're doing a fundraising event next week, Elena said. We're hoping to cover most of the out-of-pocket costs. That's wonderful. Community support makes a real difference, not just financially, but emotionally. Dr. Rahman looked at Lily, who was spinning her wheelchair in slow circles, making vrooming sounds. She's a fighter. That's half the battle right there. They spent another hour going over details, preoperative requirements, recovery timeline, potential complications. By the time they left, Elena's head was spinning with information. Lucas looked shell-shocked but cautiously hopeful. On the flight back, Lily fell asleep almost immediately. Lucas stared at his daughter for a long time, his expression unreadable. $62,000, he said quietly. For a maybe, a chance, not even a guarantee. Nothing's guaranteed, Elena said, but doing nothing is guaranteed to leave her where she is now. I know, He rubbed his face. What if I'm making the wrong choice? What if the surgery makes things worse? What if it makes things better? Lucas looked at her. You keep saying that. Because it's true. You can't live your life in fear of the worst-case scenario. Easy for you to say. It's not easy, but it's necessary. Elena reached for his hand. Lucas, you've spent 6 months doing everything humanly possible for Lily. At some point, you have to trust that you're making the right calls, that you're a good father who wants the best for his kid. And if I'm wrong, then you'll deal with it, like you've dealt with everything else. But you won't be alone. Lucas squeezed her hand hard. I don't know what I'd do without you. Good thing you don't have to find out. The benefit event was a week later, and Elena had never been more stressed in her life. The morning of, she woke up at 5 to double-check everything. Venue setup, auction items, catering, the sound system for Dr. Patel's speech. Lucas had wanted to help, but she'd banned him from planning duties, insisting he focus on spending time with Lily before the surgery. The event started at 6. By 5:30, people were already lining up outside the community center. Elena stood near the entrance, watching the crowd grow, and felt something catch in her throat. Most of these people didn't know Lucas or Lily personally. They'd just read the story, seen the news coverage, and decided to show up. Sarah found her near the registration table. This is incredible, Elle. You did this. We did this. All of us. No, you did this. You're the one who wouldn't let it go. Elena thought about that, about following Lucas to Maplewood all those months ago, about paying for Lily's treatment without asking, about pushing and pushing even when Lucas told her to stop. At the time it had felt desperate, maybe even a little unhinged. Now it felt like the best decision she'd ever made. The event itself was chaotic and beautiful. Dr. Patel spoke about Lily's case, her voice warm and professional. Lucas stood up and thanked everyone, his voice breaking twice. Lily sitting next to him in her wheelchair, waving at the crowd. The auction raised $12,000. Ticket sales and direct donations added another $8,000. By the end of the night, they'd hit their goal. $47,000. Lucas found Elena in the kitchen afterward, where she was helping clean up. He didn't say anything, just pulled her into his arms and held on like she was the only thing keeping him upright. We did it, he whispered into her hair. You did it. No, we did it. He pulled back to look at her. I couldn't have done any of this without you. You would have found a way. Maybe, but it would have been a lot harder and a lot lonelier. He kissed her, soft and grateful. Thank you for everything, for not giving up on us. I told you I wasn't going anywhere. I know. I'm starting to actually believe you. The surgery was scheduled for February 12th. The weeks leading up to it passed in a blur of pre-op appointments, insurance paperwork, and increasingly anxious conversations about what-ifs. Lucas's new freelance business was growing. He'd picked up 3 more clients and was making enough to cover rent and basic expenses, but the stress of the upcoming surgery made it hard for him to focus. Elena took time off work, telling Phil she had a family emergency. It wasn't technically a lie. Lucas and Lily had become her family, even if no official paperwork said so. They flew to Boston 2 days before the surgery. Lucas's sister, who Elena hadn't even known existed, called the night they arrived. Wait, you have a sister? Elena said after he hung up. Half-sister. We're not close. She lives in Seattle. We talk maybe once a year. Lucas looked uncomfortable. She heard about the fundraiser, wanted to send money. Did you let her? Yeah, $500. It was weird. We haven't really spoken since our dad's funeral 8 years ago. Maybe this is a chance to reconnect. Lucas shrugged, but Elena could see it meant more to him than he wanted to admit. The morning of the surgery, Lily was surprisingly calm. She'd been through enough medical procedures by now that hospitals didn't scare her the way they might scare other kids. Lucas was the opposite. Pale, shaking, barely able to form coherent sentences. They prepped Lily in a room with cheerful murals and nurses who spoke in soothing voices. When it was time to take her back, Lily looked up at her father. "Will you be here when I wake up?" "I'm not going anywhere, kiddo." "Promise?" "I promise." Lily looked at Elena. "You too?" Elena's throat got tight. "Me too. I'll be right here." Lily nodded, satisfied, and let the nurses wheel her away. The moment she disappeared through the surgical doors, Lucas collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. "I can't do this. I can't just sit here for 6 hours waiting." "Yes, you can, because you don't have a choice. What if something goes wrong? Then we deal with it. But right now, you need to breathe." Lucas tried. He really did. But over the next 6 hours, Elena watched him slowly unravel. He paced. He sat. He stood. He went to the cafeteria and came back without eating anything. He checked his phone every 30 seconds, even though the nurses had said they'd update him every hour. Elena stayed next to him, solid and present, not trying to fix it, but just being there. Around hour 4, Lucas said, "I've been thinking about her mom." Elena looked up, surprised. Lucas rarely talked about his ex. "What about her?" "Whether I should have tried harder to find her, to tell her about the accident." He leaned back in his chair. "She walked away when Lily was 2, said she couldn't do it anymore, couldn't be a mother. And I was so angry, I didn't fight her on it. Signed the papers, got full custody, and that was it." "Do you regret that?" "I don't know. Part of me thinks Lily deserves to have her mom in her life, even if she's not a good mom. And part of me thinks she's better off without someone who could just leave like that." "What does Lily say when she asks about her?" "She doesn't ask much anymore. She did when she was 4, 5. I told her the truth, that her mom loved her but couldn't stay. I don't know if that's actually true, but it felt kinder than saying she just didn't want us." Elena reached for his hand. "You're a good dad, Lucas. You've given Lily everything she needs." "Have I? Because sometimes I look at her and think about everything she's missing. A mom, a stable home, friends who don't treat her different because of the wheelchair. And I wonder if I'm enough." "You're more than enough. She adores you." "She deserves more than adoration. She deserves a normal life." "Normal's overrated. What she has is a father who would move mountains for her. That's worth more than normal." Lucas looked at her, his eyes red. "When did you get so wise?" "I'm not wise. I just care about you both too much to let you wallow in self-doubt." At hour 5, Dr. Rahman emerged, still in his surgical scrubs. Lucas shot to his feet so fast he nearly knocked over his chair. "She's out of surgery," Dr. Rahman said, and Elena watched all the tension drain out of Lucas at once. "Everything went very well. Better than expected, actually. We were able to decompress all the affected nerves and repair more damage than the scans suggested. She's in recovery now." "Can I see her?" "Give them another 30 minutes to get her settled, then yes." Lucas thanked him about 15 times. When the doctor left, Lucas turned to Elena and kissed her, hard and desperate and relieved. "She's okay," he breathed against her mouth. "She's okay. I told you she would be." They let Lucas see Lily first. Elena waited outside the recovery room, giving them privacy. Through the window, she could see Lucas sitting next to Lily's bed, holding her small hand, crying quietly while his daughter slept. When he finally came out, his eyes were swollen, but his face was lighter than Elena had seen it in months. "You can go in if you want," he said. "She's still out, but are you sure?" "Yeah, she'd want you there." Elena went in and sat in the chair Lucas had vacated. Lily looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, tubes and monitors everywhere, but her face was peaceful. Elena took her hand carefully. "Hey, kiddo," she whispered. "You did great. Your dad's really proud of you. I'm proud of you, too." Lily didn't respond, but her fingers twitched slightly, like she could hear. Recovery was long and painful. Lily spent 5 days in the hospital, then another 2 weeks in a rehabilitation facility in Boston, before Dr. Rahman cleared them to go home. Lucas stayed with her the entire time, sleeping in uncomfortable chairs, eating vending machine food, looking progressively more exhausted. Elena flew back to Denver after the first week. She'd already used up all her time off and then some, but she called every day, sometimes twice a day, to check in. Lucas sent her photos and videos. Lily sitting up in bed, Lily working with a physical therapist, Lily taking her first assisted steps post-surgery. She's doing amazing, Lucas told her on one of their calls. Dr. Rahman says she's ahead of schedule. That's incredible. Yeah, it's also terrifying. Like I'm waiting for something to go wrong. Nothing's going to go wrong. You're allowed to just be happy about this. I'm working on it. When they finally came home in early March, Elena was waiting at the airport with balloons and a sign that said, "Welcome home." Lily! The little girl lit up when she saw it, and Lucas looked at Elena like she'd hung the moon. The next few months were a blur of continued therapy, slow but steady improvement, and Lucas trying to balance his growing freelance business with Lily's care schedule. Elena helped where she could, picking Lily up from therapy when Lucas had client calls, bringing dinner over when she knew he was too tired to cook, just being present in the way she'd learned they needed. By May, Lily was walking short distances without her braces. By June, she was running, short, clumsy bursts of speed that made Lucas's face do something between joy and terror. By July, she was playing at the park like any other kid, still with some limitations, but mobile and happy and thriving. Lucas's business had grown to the point where he was making more than he had at his old job. He'd hired a part-time assistant, moved into a better apartment, and started building the kind of life he'd only dreamed about during those dark months after the accident. And Elena had taken the job with the consulting firm, but she'd negotiated remote work twice a week so she could spend more time with Lucas and Lily. Her apartment had slowly accumulated their things: Lily's drawings on the fridge, Lucas's guitar in the corner, a drawer full of their clothes for nights when they stayed over. On a Saturday in late August, Lucas asked Elena to go hiking with him. Just the two of them. Lily was spending the day with the neighbor who'd become something like an honorary grandmother. They drove up to one of the trails near Boulder, the same ones Lucas used to hike before everything fell apart. It was a perfect Colorado day, blue sky and warm sun and air that smelled like pine. They hiked in comfortable silence for the first mile. Then Lucas said, "I've been thinking about something. Dangerous pastime." "I'm serious." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "When you first showed up at Maplewood, I thought you were the most annoying person I'd ever met." Elena laughed. "Wow, romantic." "Let me finish." Lucas took her hands. "You were pushy and intrusive, and you didn't listen when I told you to back off. And I hated it because I was so used to doing everything alone that I didn't know how to let someone in." "Lucas, but you didn't give up. Even when I was a jerk to you, even when I pushed you away, you kept showing up. And somewhere along the way, you became the most important person in my life besides Lily." Elena's heart was doing something complicated in her chest. "I know we've been kind of dancing around what this is," Lucas continued, "and I know the timing's been weird and we probably did everything backward. But I don't want to dance anymore. I want to be with you, officially, for real. I want Lily to have you in her life, not just as my friend, but as—" He hesitated. "As whatever we're going to become. Because I think we could become something really good." "I think so too," Elena said quietly. "Yeah? Yeah." She stepped closer. "I love you, Lucas. I've loved you for months, even when you were being impossible. And I love Lily. And I want this, us, to be real." Lucas kissed her, and it felt different from all the other times. Less desperate, more certain, like they were finally on solid ground after months of stumbling in the dark. When they pulled apart, Lucas was smiling. "I love you too." In case that wasn't clear. It was pretty clear. They finished the hike hand in hand, talking about the future in a way that felt possible instead of terrifying. When they got back to Lucas's apartment, Lily was waiting with the neighbor, bouncing with excitement. "Did you ask her?" Lily demanded. Lucas looked embarrassed. "Lily, we talked about this. Did you ask her?" Lily looked at Elena. "He was supposed to ask if you want to live with us." Elena's eyebrows shot up. She looked at Lucas, who had gone slightly red. "I was building up to that," he muttered. "Well?" Lily pressed. "Do you?" Elena looked at this little girl who'd somehow become hers, at this man who'd led her into his impossible life, at this family they'd built from crisis and stubbornness and hope. "Yeah," she said, her voice thick. "I really do." Lily cheered and threw her arms around Elena's legs. Lucas pulled both of them into a hug, and for a moment they just stood there in the doorway, tangled together, a family that made no sense on paper but perfect sense in practice. Moving in together was chaotic. Elena's lease was up in October, so they spent September packing and sorting and arguing good-naturedly about whose furniture to keep. Lily insisted that Elena's couch was more comfortable, so Lucas's went into storage. Elena's kitchen table was too small, so they bought a new one together, the first piece of furniture that belonged to both of them. By November, they'd settled into a rhythm. Lucas worked from home most days, managing his growing client list. Elena went into the office 3 days a week and worked remote the other 2. Lily started first grade at a school with a strong inclusion program, making friends who didn't care that she still sometimes needed her wheelchair for long distances. They had family dinners every night, a rule Elena had instituted and Lucas had readily agreed to. They took turns cooking, though Lucas's repertoire was still limited to about 5 dishes. They watched movies on Friday nights, went to the park on weekends, lived a life that felt almost mundane in the best possible way. Sometimes Elena thought about how none of this should have worked. She'd inserted herself into a stranger's crisis, crossed every professional and personal boundary, thrown money at a problem she had no obligation to solve. By any reasonable standard, she'd been reckless and inappropriate. But she'd also been right. Sometimes the right thing looks wrong from the outside. Sometimes love is pushy and inconvenient and refuses to take no for an answer. Sometimes family isn't the one you're born into, but the one you build from stubbornness and hope and showing up even when you're not wanted. On a cold evening in December, almost exactly a year after the benefit event, Lucas found Elena in the kitchen making hot chocolate. Lily was in bed and the apartment was quiet except for the hum of the heating system. "I've been thinking," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Always dangerous. About how different my life is now. Compared to a year ago." Elena leaned back against him. "Different good or different bad?" "Different impossible. A year ago I was unemployed, drowning in medical debt, watching my daughter struggle and convinced I had to do it all alone." He turned her around to face him. "Now I've got a business I love. Lily's running around like nothing ever happened, and I've got you. It doesn't feel real sometimes." "It's real. We're real." "I know, but I also know I almost pushed you away. Multiple times. And if you'd actually listened to me, if you'd respected my boundaries and left us alone..." He stopped, his voice thick. "I don't know where we'd be. Nowhere good. You would have figured it out. You're stronger than you think. Maybe, but I wouldn't have been happy. Not like this." Lucas cupped her face in his hands. "You saved us, Elena. Not with money or fundraisers or any of that. You saved us by refusing to let me give up, by showing up even when I didn't want you there, by being relentlessly, annoyingly present until I couldn't imagine my life without you." Elena felt tears prick her eyes. "You're going to make me cry into this hot chocolate. Sorry, I'm having a moment." "I can see that." Lucas kissed her forehead. "Thank you for not giving up on us, for being exactly what we needed, even when I was too stubborn to see it." "You're welcome. Though, for the record, you gave me something too." "What?" "A family, a purpose beyond climbing corporate ladders, a life that actually means something." She smiled. "So really, we saved each other." "Yeah," Lucas said softly. "I guess we did." They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, while the hot chocolate cooled and the world continued spinning outside. Somewhere down the hall, Lily mumbled something in her sleep. Somewhere in Boston, Dr. Rahman was probably saving another kid's life. Somewhere in the universe, other families were fighting their own impossible battles. But here, in this small apartment in Denver, Lucas and Elena and Lily had already won theirs. Not perfectly. There would still be struggles, still medical bills to pay, still hard days and harder conversations. But they'd won the thing that mattered most. They'd found each other. And sometimes, that's all the victory anyone needs. 3 years later, on a Saturday morning in spring, Elena woke to the sound of laughter. She opened her eyes to find Lily, now 9 years old, tall and gangly with her father's eyes, jumping on the bed. "Wake up! It's adoption day!" Elena sat up, groggy but smiling. Lucas appeared in the doorway, already dressed, holding coffee. "I tried to keep her calm," he said. "I failed." "It's adoption day," Lily repeated, bouncing harder. "You're going to be my real mom." "I'm already your real mom," Elena said, catching Lily mid-bounce and pulling her into a hug. "The paperwork is just a formality. But now it'll be official. Now I can tell everyone at school that you adopted me. You've been telling everyone that for months anyway. Yeah, but now it'll be true. Lucas sat down on the edge of the bed, coffee in hand, watching his daughter and the woman he'd married 6 months ago. The ceremony had been small. Just them, Lily, a few close friends, and Lucas's sister who'd flown in from Seattle. Nothing fancy, but everything that mattered. The adoption had taken longer to finalize, more paperwork and home visits and legal hoops. But today was the day. Today, Elena Cross would officially become Elena Hale, and Lily would officially become her daughter. They drove to the courthouse as a family, Lily narrating every landmark they passed. She'd been walking without assistance for 2 years now, though she still had some lingering nerve issues that flared up when she was tired. Dr. Rahman had called her recovery miraculous. Lucas just called her stubborn, in the best possible way. The hearing itself was brief. The judge asked Elena a few questions, asked Lily if this was what she wanted, signed some papers, and just like that, it was done. "Congratulations," the judge said, smiling. "You're officially a family." Lily threw her arms around Elena. "I have a mom now, a real, official, forever mom." "You always did," Elena said, her voice breaking. "But yeah, now it's on paper." They celebrated with ice cream and a movie marathon, Lily wedged between her parents on the couch, happy and safe and loved. At some point during the third movie, she fell asleep, her head on Elena's shoulder, her feet in Lucas's lap. Lucas looked at Elena over their daughter's head. "We did good, didn't we?" "Yeah," Elena said softly. "We really did." She thought about the person she'd been 3.5 years ago, ambitious, driven, a little lonely, convinced that success meant corner offices and promotions, that Elena would have been baffled by this life, by the choices that led here. But this Elena, the one sitting on a second-hand couch with ice cream sticky fingers and a sleeping child draped across her, this Elena had everything she'd never known she wanted. Sometimes the best things in life come from the worst moments. Sometimes love is born from crisis and desperation and refusing to walk away. Sometimes family is something you choose and fight for and build from nothing but stubborn hope. And sometimes, just sometimes, the people who need saving end up saving you right back.